Call the meeting to order now that I'm actually here.
Okay, great.
So I suppose we should just probably go through, and now that we've sort of had a week to digest warrant items, I apologize. I didn't have time, Margaret, to look at what you sent out this afternoon. So
I did a chart to try to help guide you through on the financial aspects of the different warrant articles. But it complements the warrant. It was to try to make it easier for you to go through everything.
yeah, I guess we should just start with whatever we need to act on first and go through it. I mean, I know, Mary, you said you had some points to discuss about Riverbridge. I have a feeling that others will as well. And that's at the end. We might as well get as much done as we can in case we bog down on that. But I don't know how controversial other stuff is. I also have some more thoughts on salaries and some of that other stuff. Sort of like we talked that I talked about last time, and just wanted to fill out a little bit more this time. But I don't know. I assume we should probably just go article by article that we actually need a vote on. So, Margaret, if I could ask you to steer us to what we need to get to first.
Sure. Do you want me to show the town meeting warrant?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to share the warrant, that would be helpful.
I will do that. Okay. I want to make this as big a screen as possible. There. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, Article 1. This is to extend the sunset clause on the pumper tanker that was purchased in from the 2019 annual town meeting. The pumper tanker is still being built, and the final payment will not be made by June 30th. This extends it to 2022.
So this sounds pretty uncontroversial. Yeah.
Yep.
And get a motion on this one. I mean, I assume that we need a recommendations or a vote on this. So can I get a motion on that?
I move that FinCom approve this warrant. I don't know what the exact language is, but
yeah, I mean, I think you just say FinCom support.
Recommend.
Say support this. Yeah, recommend. Yeah, recommends it.
This article. I move that FinCom vote to recommend this article. How's that?
Here you go.
Get all the words in there that we can fit.
I'll second.
Right. Do we need any further discussion on this housekeeping issue? And hearing none, I'll vote roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, aye.
Janet?
Uh-oh.
Looks like we lost Janet.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find out where she is. Let's see. Oh, there she is.
I'm gonna say she definitely said she was having trouble too.
And John Annie is here now from Concom. You wanted to speak with him, so he's in the audience now.
Right. Oh, yes, that's true. Yep. Okay, so if we finish this vote, Janet, are you there? Do you have anything to?
Yeah, I missed all of that. I apologize. I just lost everything. I'm sorry.
Okay, so all it is the housekeeping issue of it extending the sunset clause on the pumper truck.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's
Did
already
you make a motion?
we had already approved it.
Oh, sorry. Do I need to
Yes.
say Janet, aye?
Unless you'd like to discuss it further.
Oh, all right. I thought I missed the whole thing. No, I'm
Yes.
good. We need
Yes,
we
you
need
need
the
to.
pumper truck, and we can't help that it's not finished,
Okay.
right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, aye.
Scott, aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Moving on.
All right. Well, since John is here, why don't we ask Concom our revenue / cost question for their for their piece. And again, I apologize. What specific article is it, Margaret?
It's currently numbered 28, Wetlands Protection Bylaw. And I would show it on the screen, but it's 7 pages
There it
long.
is. Hi, John.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Section 7, you said?
I think so, right?
Article
Margaret?
20, currently Article 28, wetland.
Yeah, I mean, I think our questions basically was, is this at all, is there, I think you kind of answered it in your response to that you'd come to the meeting. I mean, it sounded like, I think our question was, is there any measurable revenue and or do you foresee any measurable cost to this?
I don't foresee any measurable costs. I mean, I think what we're already doing, this doesn't really change what we're already doing and how we're already behaving for the most part. Revenue, the bylaw gives us the opportunity to impose some fees.
Right.
For some of the permit actions. I trolled around to some local towns to see what sort of fees they charge. Bolton, Harvard, Lancaster, Littleton, Northborough, and Southborough for RDAs, NOIs, COCs, etc. And then I sort of did a rough calculation of based on the last 2 years worth of RDAs and NOIs and whatnot. And so the fees that we would take in that are in addition to the fees that the state already allows us to collect would be somewhere around, I think last year's would have been about 3,000 roughly. And the year before that less, maybe 2,200. But these are just really rough estimates because most of the towns, when they determine NOI fee, it depends on the type of NOI being submitted. If somebody's just doing an NOI for like a deck, it's not very much money. If it's a new construction for a house, it's a few $100 maybe. If it's a larger thing like a development, it could be in the range of $2,000. So it sort of depends on what's being developed. For instance, the homes of Highland Ridge would have bought in very large fees. The solar farm would have bought in large fees. There's at least one other small development that I'm aware of that will be occurring over the next year or two. So that might literally add another $1,000 or $2,000 in fees to what we would collect. And then, of course, we collect regular fees for the already for the permit actions that come in. Not a lot, as June had pointed out, but it's these are some monies that could potentially be used for something. As far as costs, there really are no incremental costs. We're already, doing a lot. There's just sort of a lot of the bylaw enhances our sort of administrative opportunities, and then just provides some protections for a few things like intermittent streams, vernal pools, and then actually turns to law the policy, which is the 25-foot no touch zone.
Okay. Did anyone have any specific questions for John based on that, or based on what our concerns were or questions were initially?
I guess I don't.
I'm not sure who actually. Yeah, I think was it Scott? I think you had.
No, it wasn't me, but well, I have a question
Oh.
now. But so, are we considering this to be something that Finance Committee needs to have a vote on?
Yeah, and that right. So I'm wondering if it's not material, how much it really needs a vote from us. But
Yeah, the difficult
But it answers
thing
our
for me
question.
looking at if it's from, I'm trying to figure out from the finance side. Overall, I'm against the act, but or this article, but I'm not sure about dealing with the finance piece.
Scott, can I ask you why you're against the article?
The extending of the additional, I think it's definitely, I'm very sensitive to those things that will possibly impact people's uses of their land in the future. And the extension of this with additional, beyond what the Massachusetts Wetland Act provides, such as you mentioned, the intermittent streams. I have an intermittent stream on my property, for example. So there are things that I definitely would not support this.
Well, you to be clear about what the intermittent stream thing is about, it just extends jurisdiction. Doesn't mean that prohibits any kind of work being done. It just makes sure that we have jurisdiction. That's all. It doesn't prevent you from doing work on your property because of an intermittent stream.
Right. I mean, but it is something that, I mean, it seems like extends, like you said, extends jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission to other things here that they would be, could be restricting on.
Two things. I mean, basically, intermittent streams are vernal pools. The curiosity about the 25-foot no touch thing is there's been a 25-foot no touch policy, which was passed by the Conservation Commission many years ago, which 95 to 99% of the applicants sort of respect, and occasionally they don't. And there was at least one case within the last decade where, you know, it was appealed on that and it was overturned. And there's been case law on that point, such that you know, policy doesn't hold any weight. So this just makes sure that it's a 25-foot no touch zone. But if there is grandfathering, there's exceptionalism, there's exceptions for no viable alternative, there's exceptions for agricultural use. So, I mean, that's really the only extra stuff. The administrative stuff. Pardon me, Janet?
No, I'm trying to process it all. I have it up and I'm trying to like read it and listen at the same time.
Okay. Can I share something, I think, that I was working on?
I think you have the ability to share screen.
I was asking permission to share the screen.
Oh, I can't
Yes, you
grant
have
you that.
permission.
Thank you.
I can.
So what this is sort of, I highlighted the bylaw, and the stuff in green is things that essentially just lifted, we have to repeat for reasons that the lawyers tell us we have to repeat, that are already contained in the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Protection Act regulations for the state. You know, the first part is just a preamble. This talks about the home rule authority, but you know, the jurisdiction's the same. The only thing that's different is the vernal pools the protection is slightly different. There is protection in the Wetlands Protection Act, but this extends it a little bit more. And then intermittent streams. And then I didn't highlight this part because, again, just because it's about vernal pools, but there, like I said, there's already protection for vernal pools. We just extended it. There isn't protection for isolated lands subject to flooding. And this is the part about the no disturb zone, this policy, which has been in effect for years and years and years, but now would become bylaw. But then, you know, when you get into all the other stuff, you start getting into really a lot of stuff that's just a repetition. This part just means we can use the same forms that the state already uses. This is the part where we can charge fees. The part in yellow is not from the Wetlands Protection Act, but I wanted to highlight it specifically because it's something that doesn't really apply to anybody but very large developers, whereby we would need they would need to hire a conservation monitor, or you know, a conservation monitor needs to be hired to keep, you know, an expert to keep track of the work while it's being done. This is, for instance, was done for the solar farm and is being done for Highland Commons. And all this allows us to do is to set up an account with the treasurer's office so that the money is deposited there and then paid to the monitor. That way, because what happens sometimes is that has happened in Berlin, is that the applicant stops paying the monitor, and then the monitor starts saying, hey, help me get paid here. This just bypasses that whole headache. So this whole part is just that. This part is just, again, more about how things go. So this just allows us to continue. There's this weird little aspect to this, which is that we have to ask the applicant permission to continue a hearing for just cause. This just allows us to continue the hearing for just cause. It's just, again, it doesn't really affect it. It just affects our administrative work. And again, this just means we have the same hearing, so we don't have to do something different. This is all just replication. This wildlife habitat studies, again, applies to large projects where there might be an endangered species in something like a 30-acre development or 20-acre development that, you know, we want to make sure that that's taken into account. Some large projects do this anyway. Again, more repetition. Again, this just means we can use the same forms. This just means we'll have regulations, which towns do after they pass the bylaw. That's where you get into the fine print about just what the fees are and stuff like that. These are all the definitions, which are pulled right out. This just expands the definition of vernal pool a little bit. Enforcement's mostly the same. This allows us to impose fines. Now, you know, this is something else that upset people, or one person that we spoke with. Other people have said, well, geez, I didn't realize you couldn't already impose fines. The issue here is that, you know, there are times when everybody agrees that there's a problem. Everybody agrees what the solution should be. There's actually been plans drawn up about the solution, but then the person involved chooses not to act and just sits on it. And this would just be a tool to get them moving. I mean, the DEP can impose fines up to, like, I think $25,000 per incident, but they're stretched too thin in central Massachusetts, so they've basically been hands off. The EPA can also impose huge fines. The burden of proof thing is just what lawyers put in there. This appeals part I put in, this is whereby, you know, usually for something's denied based on a municipal wetland bylaw as opposed to the state municipal wetland bylaw, Wetlands Protection Act. It doesn't get appealed to DEP, it gets appealed to Superior Court, which seemed like a real burden for some people we spoke with. So I put this arbitration clause in as a way to make things easier and friendlier and more negotiable if there's a disagreement about this wetlands bylaw. And again, this is just sort of lawyer talk about this related to the wetlands bylaw and severability, and that's it. That's the whole thing.
Sorry, excuse me, Margaret, do you have an opinion on whether we would actually need to vote on this or not? If there's
No, I
enough.
do not. I have just a couple of questions for John. I guess on behalf of FinCom. John, for the fees for the fines that are imposed, if there was a fine imposed, would that go to the general fund, or is that a fine that would go into the town's wetlands fund?
I don't know. I mean, I'd let the town council sort that out. My supposition is that fines will never be imposed.
Okay.
You know, the goal is not to impose fines. The goal is to have the opportunity to impose fines to get people moving. Ideally, we'll never collect a penny.
And permit fees, you already collect permit fees under the Wetlands Protection Act. Now those go into the Wetlands Protection Fund, correct?
Right, which we essentially can't have a great deal of time accessing.
Okay, and then the only other question I have is would be on, and it's I know this is hard to speculate, but could there potentially be any lost revenues resulting from an inability to develop a parcel where now a parcel could be developed?
That would be hard to imagine unless they were grossly violating the Wetlands Protection Act anyway. I suppose if they found the last owl of some species in the woods somewhere that could do it. But I mean, I don't think that it would prevent development. It just helps regulate to make sure that the development is done appropriately. This is not meant to be an anti-development bylaw.
Okay,
It's
those are my only
it's really
questions.
just mostly just help or do our jobs better.
Okay, all right.
So,
thank you.
John, I hate to be the one that brings this up, but it is really recorded in one of your conservation committees that this will in fact not allow some people to develop land, and therefore property taxes won't be able to collect it. And if you want the meeting, I will go back and research last year. It's a conversation between Carol and Walter to this exact question. And he said it will prevent people from being able to develop their land, and therefore property taxes won't be able to be gained. So I just want to know, how many people really will that impact? And then I have no problem with the 25-foot touch zone, but I wonder about this jurisdiction. And, you know, the state of Massachusetts already has, you know, buffer zones. And I just think that it's a little bit over the top on that piece. That's
All
my
right.
own
Well,
comment.
I have three answers for you. The first is, obviously, I can't really comment off the top of my head of a conversation between Walter and Carol that happened over a year ago. But I can say that Walter doesn't like development. He's very open about that. That's Walter's opinion. That's not the opinion of the commission as it stands. This is not the bylaw that Walter wants. Walter wanted a much more restrictive bylaw. He didn't, and this isn't it. So I don't really, you know, I'm not going to defend whatever Walter might have said, you know, based on his own personal opinion about, you know, anti-development. This is not an anti-development bylaw.
No, it wasn't. I want to clarify. It wasn't his opinion. The question was asked if this would, exactly what Margaret just asked. And the answer was, yes, it would. So
I think that I mean, you'd have to come up with a test case for me. I don't see that this is being an anti-development bylaw. I don't see how, you know, it would prevent people from developing their lands.
Yeah.
I can't comment on that
wouldn't know.
discussion because I just don't remember it.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm just saying that's what was said at your meeting. So I'm just, yeah.
I can't. I have no memory of that conversation. None.
Well, I'll look for the meeting, see if I can find it for you.
Okay. With respect to your third thing, again, I would point out that 60% of the towns and cities in Massachusetts have their own municipal bylaw. Many of them have much more restrictive articles. You know, there's, you know, 50-foot no touch zones. There's no build zones, you know, out to 100 feet. You know, I can send you a Excel spreadsheet of, you know, all these various town decisions. You know, this is actually a relatively conservative one. The 25 no touch zone makes sense. The reason you might want to ask why it's there to begin with. And it's twofold. You know, the first, you know, is basically critters and water quality. You know, for the various types of wildlife, that area close to the wetlands is very important for them. That's something the biologists have determined over and over again. The second is that strip of land is invaluable in helping filter runoff going into the wetlands to make sure that the water, you know, the various pollutants are filtered down. You know, that kind of strip of land plays a huge difference in the wall and ensuring good water quality.
You know, I have no problem with that. It's just the jurisdiction versus discretionary from the state. That's the piece I'm having issue with.
I don't understand that actually. So
Into the buffer zone.
It
It's
is part of the buffer zone. I mean, it's a stricter interpretation of the first part of the buffer zone. So we already have jurisdiction over the first 100 feet of the buffer zone, of the 100-foot buffer zone. This is just saying that we really don't want anything done in that first 25 feet. That's what that says.
Yeah, John, I've got a question. It's really to clarify the situation for me. Is this an entire replacement of the existing Berlin bylaw?
There
Or
is no wetland bylaw.
it doesn't exist?
It doesn't exist.
Okay. And then from the big picture perspective, this gives us a chance as the town to drill in on those parts of what's available within the powers of the town through its conservation commission to regulate what's going on with building or with changes to the plan. Yeah, is that what we're doing here?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am, John.
Please repeat the question.
All right, it was a little bit convoluted. So this is clarifying what the local powers are when there's a wetland involved in any kind of change in a property.
I don't know if clarifying is the right word. I think it's specifying some extra authority that we have. Most of it is administrative. The point of all the green highlighting was to point out that we already have most of the authority. A lot of those, we already have a lot of authority.
Yeah.
Much of the verbiage in there just reflects what we already do and the authority we already have.
Yeah, so you're getting to a point that I'm trying to get to, which is, I was going to say, can you look at a red line of what we do today versus what's new? But I guess what I'm asking, and maybe I think it would be useful at town meeting, is to say, here's the list of added powers that go to the Conservation Commission.
Well, I do have that.
Okay.
This is something also I've shared. It's just sort of a summary sheet of the extra stuff that all that big long document sort of boils down to.
Oh yeah, that's very useful, right?
So I've distributed that to some people, I guess, but and I can mail.
Well, I guess
send a document to you.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure that we need to continue to debate the merits of the entire.
Yeah, Stan, I'm sorry. I got carried away. Is Scott still in the audience?
No,
or-
it's not.
Oh,
No,
yes,
I mean,
I'm still
we're
here.
asking questions too, so it's not
So-
on you, John. It's not, we're all. I mean, this is interesting, and it's something that needs to be discussed. I don't know that this is the forum for it. So,
Yeah.
That's fair.
I agree, Stan. And I would just say to John, could you send this thing out? Because then I could understand exactly, just as a citizen, not for FinCom. For FinCom purposes, as I've listened to this discussion, and particularly what you had to say, Scott, as an individual property owner, you feel like you could be impacted if you wanted to do something on your parcel. I think that there could be a financial impact in terms of cost revenue for an individual property owner. But the way I look at new building in the town is that it brings both revenue and cost to the town. And so I view something like this that impacts wetlands around new development. It's got grandfather clauses in it, so it's really about the new development. I see it as kind of financially neutral. What Janet said and what Scott said are accurate with respect to an existing landowner in the town and what you can do there. But I don't see, when we expand the number of people living in the town, we expand the town costs, full stop. So, yes, you have tax revenue coming in. Yeah, you have the fees during the building and development project. But I don't know that we could ever really accurately say that there is an impact on revenue or an impact on cost as a result of that one is in excess of the other, although my sense is that the costs continue to go up.
I mean, I think it would be hard. Yeah, Mary, I agree with all of that, and I think it would be very difficult for us to have, as a FinCom, to have an opinion that this has a direct financial impact that we could actually say here, we expect to, have increased revenue, or we expect to have increased costs. It seems like, yes, there's going to be tons of back and forth, and
Yep.
the net of it all will probably be zero. It'll probably be zero.
Well, yeah, or difficult to, you know, and you jumped into my conclusion. That's exactly where I was heading. And that's my sense of it, is that we don't need to vote on this particular article or have a recommendation on it as a finance committee.
I would agree with you, Mary.
Yeah, I don't think there needs to be a vote from the finance committee. Though I do, for John, if you could even send us what you had highlighted,
Oh,
that
sure.
would be useful for reading it. I've read this over multiple times.
It
And
makes you fall asleep.
yeah,
And
yes,
John, can you also add, I don't see anything in there about my question, which doesn't clarify the whole jurisdictional over the Massachusetts versus the town.
So I don't fully understand the question. I think this, it sort of adds, it just essentially it adds accretions or it adds extra protections to what the state has.
Okay.
That's really all it does. I mean, it just adds extra. It doesn't, you know, certainly doesn't subvert the Wetlands Protection Act or regulations. It just adds extra stuff to it. That's all.
yeah. I mean, just from a general
Okay.
perspective, I mean, outside of FinCom, my real objection would be the added stuff being the added protections. That's most likely why I'd be against the this bylaw myself.
Which ones though?
I mean, first of all, the internet streams. I mean, just adding that in there, I would be.
But
there was no way I would
in your
actually
the
support it.
intermittent stream on your property?
At this point, I don't have a plan to, but it's one of those things I don't know what I'll be doing in 5 years, 10 years. And not saying
But
you'd fill it in, but
Well,
you'd
what
still
would happen
have.
if you filled it in?
I'm not saying
flood
you'd
your
remove
lawn.
the whole thing, but I'm just talking about it's like anything. If you're wanting to get access over it, and I mean, you wouldn't be blocking the stream. I know that, but there are those type of things that just get complicated.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to build a driveway over it, you just put in a permit. If you wanted to put some boards over it, just go ahead and do so. You know, it's not meant to be. I'll tell you exactly where the intermittent stream thing, why it felt to be so powerful to be there. It's because there's a property on Crosby Road where a stream which runs basically most of the time during a drought, where the official drought lines were just south of Berlin, it dried up, and this developer got it changed from a perennial stream to an intermittent stream, and you know, and then after that, used that change to then sort of like alter how he was able to file his permit. That's where this all came from. That's why the commission it feels strongly about intermittent streams. It really is just about, because of that one incident. But again, you know, if you need to access land on the other side of an intermittent stream, I can't imagine that's going to be a problem. I mean, this is not about property taking. You know, people do cross wetlands, let alone intermittent streams. Intermittent streams, there's development that happens by crossing wetlands. So it's just that it gets permitted so that we don't do what used to happen when I was a kid, which is that you just brought in a couple of truckloads of fill and you just covered it all up. I mean, you know, that's why the Wetlands Protection Act was enacted in the first place, because that's what the developers did before. This happened in the neighborhood when I was a kid. They just filled this stuff in, and did what they wanted. So it's, the idea is just to make sure that the water quality in Berlin stays good, that the open spaces stay healthy, that that the town retains its rural character. That's what this is about. We're not trying to harass people.
Right, well,
we don't want to harass people.
Okay, well, let's continue the discussion at annual meeting then.
All right. Sorry, again, my apologies.
Julie, did you have any?
I kept talking.
No, I appreciate you coming though, John, because I think like everyone else, when I was reading the 7-page article, I kept thinking, what is this going to cost us? And what we were going to get And I really appreciate you taking the time to clarify some of this.
I'd be willing to do it again.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys want the green thing and the highlight thing? Should I send it to Stan to send, or Mary to send it to everybody? How do you want me to do this?
You can send it to either one of us, John. We'll circulate it. You only
All
have to
right.
send it
I
to
think
one
Mary,
person.
I think yours is the easiest
Yeah.
for me to find. So I'll just send
Yeah,
it to
yeah,
Mary
and
and then
I'll
you
pass
get
it
to-
on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your meeting.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you, John.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
I wanted to ask him if they were going to be having a public forum for this, because
Yes.
imagine, oh, you're still there. Oh, good. Because if we have all these questions and concerns, can you imagine when you get the whole town together?
Yes, we're going to start holding some forums.
Okay.
Carolyn is better at
Ask
organizing
my
that than I am.
question in a better fashion.
Yeah. No. Or just email me. I'll, anyway, all right. Good night, guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Bye,
Thank you.
John.
Bye, John. Thanks.
All righty. So I think we can go past that one, Margaret. I think we've all agreed we're not going to vote on this one.
Next up is, the select board has not included the current article number 2, because there is a pending legislation that was filed by the governor on the town's behalf to allow the chief's continued employment before the mandatory retirement age. That has been assigned a House bill number. And the hope is that it moves through, because by the time town meeting happens, chief is already going to be 65. So this article is likely to be removed. And I do not see any significant financial implications from this either way.
Okay, then let's skip over that one.
Okay. The next one, there is a cost. This is
Absolutely.
Dennis's tax collection software conversion. He's requesting $32,000 to change from the point system to the Vadar system.
Right, which he explained to all of us. And then this coming from where?
This is coming from free
cash?
cash. It'll be coming from free cash. Well, that's my recommendation. It comes from free cash.
Yeah. All right, well, we should definitely take a vote on this. Do we have a motion on this one?
I move that FinCom recommend this article. Vote to recommend this article.
I'll second.
Good, thank you. Now, what are folks' thoughts on this one? I personally think that it needs to happen. I think this is long overdue, and hopefully gets us into the 21st century.
Yeah, I'm there, Stan.
I agree. It's also, if we don't do it now, we're going to have to do it at some point. It's not like it's
Right.
I totally agree, but is this system like going to be still good in 10 years from now, or is this a system you can build on? I think maybe Jude speak to that, because don't you use similar one or this one, or?
This is the one that we've been using for the last, I think it's been like 20 years now.
And do they just keep updating it like they do like QuickBooks or something, so you're never behind the 8 ball?
Yeah, they usually update it at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. Like we just had it updated because of the 1099 changes and
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, any further discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Ken and I.
Scott, aye.
Guys are so good
Okay.
at that now. I just love
You
it.
know, once we're all connected and everything, yeah, exactly.
once you know who you follow, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, it does make it a little easier.
Okay, the next is the Community Preservation Act 2021, the fiscal year 21 annual budget. This is something that will have to happen every single year. The town is a Community Preservation Act community, and there are actually two separate CPA budget articles on this particular warrant. In future years, there will only be the coming fiscal year's appropriations as far as the budget. So this one is playing catch up for FY21.
Right.
The current, by the way, the current amount in CPA, not including the state's disbursement that will be credited later, is $200,833.05.
So the state disbursement will be about another 200,000. Is that the expectation?
197 plus or minus.
Okay. And that's just for fiscal year 21.
Revenues or services. Funding each of these put from raised in fiscal year 21. Okay, so that's what the is. So I'm sorry. So then what's 487? Is that?
That's the amount of money that they assume that they're going to be taking
That
in
assume
this
will be in
year.
there.
Yeah.
Margaret, the 200,000 something number was what you said is in there now to date.
That's correct.
Okay.
No, Stan, that's actually
No.
left over from last year,
Mhm.
from 20. So that does not include the money that's come in this year so far.
So we're talking about 200-ish for last year and another 480 for this coming year.
Yes, give or take.
And then,
Yep.
and then
And
the
then-
state putting in on top of that for both.
Mhm.
And so we have the reserves.
The way that the CPA is set up is that we charge a 3% tax surcharge on all
Right.
of the real estate taxes. The money is collected and it's put into a separate funding of the community preservation funds. At the
Yep.
end of the year, per the way that the CPA funding is set up, is you put in approximately 10% into each of those three categories that you see there: the historical,
Yeah.
the community housing, and the open space. And the amount that's left over gets turned into like a free cash for them, but it's a fund balance. So what they're doing is that at the annual town meeting, they have to do just like you do with the budget, and they have to estimate what's going to come next year. Because we didn't have the committee set up in fiscal year 20, this wasn't done. This should have
Right.
been done at last year's town meeting. So it tells me at the end of the year, after we've collected approximately 157,000-ish from state, and then we've billed out 290,000, give or take a few, for this year's taxes. At the end of the year, they're telling me to take of that money, they're telling me to take the 48,000 and put it into those three categories, and the balance will go into like the E&D. So it will just add to their pot for future
But
spending.
it is restricted to CPA.
Correct.
Right,
They're
I just
not
want-
spending this, they're just reserving this.
Okay, I just want to clarify if I understand correctly. So it can only be spent on these three categories, and the rules are at least 10%
Yep.
must be spent on each individual category. So it could be one
reserved.
category.
Allocated to.
Allocated, reserved, we're not actually appropriating this for spending.
Right, we aren't
It's reserved.
appropriating it yet.
Correct.
But in the end, you would only be able to, I would assume that wherever you reserve it for, eventually you could only spend it
Correct.
for that category, or at least
Yep.
that category.
Yep.
At least,
If
okay.
you put it in that bucket, yes. And for the general reserve, for the general CPA reserve, if there is a project where there aren't sufficient funds in one of these buckets, the CPA could request that town meeting approve spending of additional funds from the general CPA reserve in addition to these allocations.
Was there any, it's just these three allocations? I thought there was two others.
Well, open space is sometimes called open space and recreation. I don't know if that might be one of the things you're thinking of. These are really
I
the only
thought
three.
recreation was part of it.
You know what,
It's
Janet,
part of the
that's a
open
good
space.
question. Yeah, I
Because
don't know if we
what's
need
gonna
to
happen.
change-
I know recreation is supposed to be getting some of this.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
my concern is that what if someone in recreation wants to do something and then somebody else wants to just use it for open space and they're going to say, oh, it's not in there.
It has to go to the CPA committee, and
Mhm.
they will be the ones to actually designate where the monies go based on the law. There's a
Yes.
whole separate set of
Oh, I-
criterias
and
and applications.
This is also only 30% of the money. I mean, they're going to have
Correct.
discretion over the other 70%.
Correct. Correct.
CPA is actually represented, CPA, Recreation Committee is actually represented on the CPA committee.
Yeah.
So they are an active participant. So
Right.
an open space, the open space bucket does include open space and recreation.
But I thought when we actually voted on this, when you went back, that it was actually part of that verbiage.
This verbiage is pursuant to state statute. So we're having
I
legal.
know what I think Janet is talking about, and Janet, I will double check on what you're asking because I do get what
Okay.
you're saying. So,
Okay, I'm just a
I
little
will.
confused over that, so I don't, you know what I mean?
Yep, I know what you're saying. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think there's 5 buckets that the money is generally going to be spent for the CPA. It's just that these reserves are only have been further distilled down to 3 reserves, I think is basically what it is. And
I thought the other 2 buckets, these 3 were going to get the percentage and the other 2 could have monies, but these were going to get the specific percentage. It's not clear.
But again, this is only 30% of the money.
Yes, I am.
Well,
No,
right, but
Janet, I know what you're saying, but yes, by the law, we have to put 10%
Right.
into each of these 3 categories.
Yeah.
All the other categories will be covered and can apply for this, and it will go to the Community Preservation Committee to be designated. As of right now, they do not have any projects. They are not spending any of this money right
Right.
now. They're just allocating it.
I understand. I just don't want that group to not be able to.
Yeah, no, this is an actual law. This isn't something that we can change our minds as we're going along on, but I will double check on the actual verbiage to see if we had to put a / recreation. I know what you're talking about there, so.
Okay, thank you. I just
Yep.
thought I was losing it.
Oh, okay, we can't jump forward yet.
so it's, yeah, so I mean, we need a FinCom vote on this one, I assume. This smacks of a lot of money. But it's also by law, so I'm not sure that there's really much that we have to say about it. So I guess I need a motion. Wow.
Yeah, okay, let's see. I move that FinCom vote to recommend this Article 4. And maybe we can take it together with Article 17, which is for fiscal 22. They're very similar articles. I don't know if we need to vote separately, we do.
It's probably cleaner to vote separately.
Okay, so I'll leave it here for Article 4 then.
I'll second.
So do we want to put anything in, or are we even able to put in any different verbiage, or do we just go with this?
You
Guess
will
it'd be a
place your
discussion.
recommendation on it.
Well, maybe in the summer,
Right, but-
once we figure out what I'm talking about that June recalls, maybe it would, I know this is going to come up at town meeting. I'm trying to think of how we can like mainstream stuff so that our meeting isn't so long, because there are a lot of articles and there's a lot of up for discussion articles.
We're going to be doing a pre-town meeting to go over all this stuff. So hopefully all the answers and questions will come up then.
Yeah, it's similar to what we did last year with the pre-town meeting and budget forum. And we'll save wetlands protection bylaw for last.
No, I think we have to do the citizens petition last, don't we? Which is going to be just as controversial.
It's a toss up.
Yeah.
Need three or four pre-meetings.
3 or 4 what? 3
Again,
meetings?
this
Yeah.
has gone
3
to,
or 4
this is,
pre-meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
again, this has gone to town council. I know June's looking into the verbiage with additional categories. It's also with town council now for review as to legal form. This could change slightly, and so could finance committee's recommendation. So your recommendation is on the financial aspect of it. You could certainly change your recommendation or speak to it at town meeting or at the forum.
Okay, well, knowing that, then I guess I would ask for a vote unless we have any further discussions on this. So hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Jan and I.
Yeah,
God,
All right, moving on.
Next one's a longer one. These are the special article closeouts. I'm afraid this goes to a couple of pages. The total amounts being closed out are $105,460.98. The closeouts, okay, so A will be closed out to free cash. I'm sorry, to the general fund, which will revert to free cash. B will be closed out to the general fund. C will be closed out to the general fund. D will be closed out to the Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation Fund. E will be closed out to general stabilization. F will be closed out to capital stabilization. G will be closed out to the general fund. H will be closed out to free cash, and I will be closed out to a combination of Highland Commons Cultural Mitigation Fund and the general fund. Is that correct, June?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so.
So are we reusing the terms free cash and raise and appropriate as general fund?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're
Yeah.
not consistent with our terminology here. Okay,
Yeah.
so free cash, a raise and appropriate, and that's the only terms we're using, right?
Yeah.
Is here, but that's we're referred to also as a general fund. So those three are the same thing.
Yes, when the funds are turned back, they're turned back to the general fund, and it will show
because,
up at free.
yeah, you can't actually turn back to free cash directly.
Yeah. Any questions on this one? Last year, you'll recall that we used some of the prior special article funds to fund, I think Berlin Memorial Capital, we used some of them to do. This year, they're just going to close out to their respective funding sources.
What's the total?
$105,460.98.
Stan, if I might just answer Janet's question on the open space.
Uh-huh.
It actually, in the book, it does refer to CPA fund open space reserve, and in parentheses, it says includes recreation. So it's there,
Okay.
it's just not a direct name.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like there were more than 3 categories. for
They
the
actually
CPA.
originally, when they talk about it, the projects that the money can be spent on are open space, land for recreation, historical preservation, and community housing is how they word it. Those are the
Yeah.
and then there's a few more details that you can get into as to what the whole projects can be used for. But these are requirements that money's put aside for these so that you can't use it all on just one item.
That might
Okay.
promote a problem in the future. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I don't know. I
Well,
think
it might, but unfortunately, that's the law.
no, but I think the recreation piece not being included in the parentheses is.
But it's there in the law. That's what I'm saying. It's
That's what
not
I'm trying. Yeah.
Janet, maybe we can tackle that in the summary below the article. Maybe we
Yep.
could clarify it down there.
I think it needs to be clarified right down there so that, because that was a huge discussion when this really went in originally.
I'll speak with the community preservation, Tim Wheeler, the chair, to see what we can do to try to clarify that.
So I'm looking at the actual language that's in the 2018 town report on page 134. And yes, there are a series of listed things you could do. They all start with things like acquisition, creation, and preservation. So there's 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 categories that I see here. And that's statutory, right? That's what June is saying, yeah. So
Right.
the actual language is there. But I think the 3 buckets that are in the article are perfectly fine.
Again, we'll try, I'll ask Tim if there's any way we can try to polish up the summary a little bit to make it clear.
Alrighty, so I think we were ready to vote
Sorry.
on this, were we?
Mhm.
Was there any further discussion on these closeouts of these special articles? So hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Can we make a
We
motion?
need a motion.
I thought we did. I thought we had one, didn't we?
I don't think so. What's
All right, I'll make a motion just to keep it easy for Julie. So I'll make a motion that we
Okay.
There you go.
recommend Article 5. We vote to recommend Article 5.
Okay, thank you.
Second that.
Okay, now do we have any further discussion? All right, well, hearing none, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Jan and I?
Yeah.
Scott, aye.
Alrighty, moving on.
Next is
Bullard House.
Oh, Bullard House. Okay, so this is an existing approved article. This just expands the scope of the work allowed under that article to include surveys, engineering, architectural type work. Right now, the scope is limited to actual renovation, construction type work. So June asked for this to allow expenditures for studies on the house.
Well, and since it's not asking for additional funds, I don't think this needs a finance vote.
I think you're right, Stan. It's just a change in language.
I agree.
Okay, moving on. Oh, here we are. Capital budget, FY21 capital budget. Total amount of funding would be $819,139 from 2 different funding sources: free cash and Highland Commons public safety mitigation. Okay, one is for to replace the town office rooftop air handler, which is non-functional now. I think this is actually 23 years old, the rooftop unit now. Town building roof replacement. Roof is 27 years old. There are several leaks. That's a $200,000 replacement cost. Then there is the annual cruiser replacement, $51,382 from Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation. Fire EMS car 2, which is a pickup, and that's $47,757. Highway hot top, just an annual one, $80,000 from free cash. Highway loader replacement. I didn't look at this. I have a duplicate something or other here. 21-year-old. Okay. And there's another issue. Oops, sorry. Okay. Then there is the wood chipper replacement, $80,000 from free cash. And then Capital Planning Committee would like to continue programmatically funding the Capital Stabilization Fund to help offset future debt service costs or costs for very large capital items that could be borrowed for. That's $125,000. And that's it.
I'd like to say I sat on this committee this year as the liaison, and I was really impressed with how thoughtful they all were with with their decisions and how they went about it. And, you know, they pondered things from one meeting to a next. And really, I just, it was enlightening for myself because I didn't know what to expect. They really were a good group to get my.
They
feet
are a good,
wet.
yeah, they're a good group.
They
Well,
are.
that's good to know. Thank you, Janet.
I was just question here. I mean, it just seems odd that I know where you made that edit in line 6. Are you able to remove also the rusty tired? It just seems odd that that one gets the superlatives versus the
Okay,
others. I
that
think
was
21-year-old
perfect.
seems to be sufficient.
I think it sounds like begging, Scott, don't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Or is it you're not able to make that
They
type of
refer to
Well,
the
change?
Fred
Is it-
Flintstone machine because their feet are rolling.
It's, um, I can ask Capital Planning Committee.
Margaret, did you double check on, do you think we're going to be able to do the roof air handler and replace the roof all in 1 year?
Oh, that's a problem. Yes, and I need to actually talk with CPC about that. There's a lot of procurement stuff on here that's going to take some time, and it is possible that the sunset clause here should be on the first two items, 2023. The board wants to expedite the air handler replacement, which would mean we have to expedite the roof replacement. So it's possible it's going to be done by June of 2022.
I don't want to have to go back to town meeting. That would be my only.
I don't either. But
Is there a negative to moving the sunset out?
in my opinion, there is not.
Yeah, then I think that's what I would do.
Who gets to make that decision to move the sunset out?
Well, I can consult with the CPC. I don't think they'd have any problem whatsoever with this. The select board has also voted to include this article, so I'd consult with them as well. But I think that we could probably push it out to 2023.
Definitely makes sense because you all didn't hear all the conversation, but you know, it's like one of those things you can't do one without the other, you know, because you can't. They wanted to fix the roof air handler, but now they're walking on a rubberized roof, and they were afraid if they did the roof first, and then they would wreck the roof when they were trying to do the other. So it's something that really needs to be done together.
And my only other issue or question would be for me for posting purposes is that number 8 is actually a transfer from. It's not per se a special article that we're going to set up and then move money from directly. That would be my only other issue with posting.
What was 8, June?
Oh, that's right. So this needs to be rephrased.
The money that they wanted to put towards the
Yeah.
capital stabilization.
5,000. Yep.
So this
Which
is going to be.
pretty much that's what they mean to do.
I'm going to change this now and then just highlight it for the board.
Because otherwise, based on how it is right now, I'd have to set it up as a special article, and then we'd have to transfer it out of the article into stabilization later on. And
So there, okay.
Cool.
All right, I'm just gonna highlight that so I don't lose it. Okay, so I'll look into the extension of the sunset clause on 1 and 2 and changing rusty tired to something else.
Just removing it.
I'm surprised they didn't say that the vehicles had to be green where they put the rusty, because that was a huge thing that they were very concerned about, what type of vehicles they were gonna be purchasing, and you know, but we're gonna leave rusty in.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Rusty.
I'll highlight. Let me highlight that too. That way.
So, Margaret, out of highway safety, the mitigation fund, or should not out of highway, out of public safety mitigation, we have approximately 103 and 4. Is there anything coming out of 1 and 2?
No, the total coming from Highland Commons public safety mitigation is $99,139.
Right, and then we have a partial funding of those two budgets of how much to? It's another
210.
100-ish.
Oh, $210,000 for the yes, for the personnel, yeah.
So 300. So and I assume everyone saw, or I hope everyone saw that we did get the public safety check in, which is great news.
Yes.
I have to wonder, I'll ring Janet's bell on this as to whether next year we will see that, given that will have been, I would imagine that they put this money aside. They probably started putting this money aside before COVID, and we're able to pay this. I'd be surprised next year if they can. So, and I know that it's, we can sue them for it, and all down the line, and that would hopefully collect the money. But I'm wondering if we just as a committee need to be, I think we just need to be cognizant of the chance that this money is not going to be readily available in the future, and that we might want to start prepping people for that. Just bringing that up.
Just be careful how you put it, that's all.
Yeah, I know.
You're saying, but also we don't want it to be that, yeah, you don't have to pay.
No, that's right. I get that.
I think maybe the message, would be something like, Finance Committee feels that there needs to be, we need to utilize these funds conservatively in a prudent way to assure that we have balances remaining, and that there is something to fall back on in future years or something. Because right now, Stan, the balance, I think right now, after this town meeting, is going to be higher than it ever has been in prior years. The balance after this town meeting is going to be $332,911. And I don't know, last year, the administrative finance team came and talked to FinCom about establishing a public safety mitigation fund where we could actually kind of sock away some of this money for savings for future use. But definitely, I completely agree with you. There needs to be a message.
I don't understand. I thought it's already stays in there if we don't spend it.
It does. Well, it stays in there, but it's not in a dedicated special stabilization fund.
It's just in general law funds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's in general what?
General funds.
Mm-hmm.
Not general funds for the town. It's in general funds for.
Well, as of right now, we've set it up in receipts reserved for appropriation, but the preferred place to put it would be in stabilization.
According to DOR, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we propose the special stabilization.
But yet, to the answer to your question, Stan, no, it doesn't go away. It is put in a special fund, but not necessarily the best one.
Okay.
And it might not be a bad idea to start thinking about maybe getting it so that we're at least a year ahead as far as the funding sources go. And maybe this year, next year may not be a bad idea to establish that, just so that way there we have a little bit of a cushion in case the payment's delayed.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we're going to have I mean, if we have a $300,000 balance in there at the end of expenditures for this year, then for this budgeting cycle,
that might be the time to start. Yeah.
Yep. So it'll be a small amount to put aside.
They started, it'll be there.
Yep.
So okay.
Yeah. There you go, Stan. If the revenues get lumpy, we'll be able to smooth them out.
Yes.
Lumpy, squishy, she's got her words back.
No accountant in my world says that.
While you're talking,
it's a legal term, June.
Yeah.
The other night. I think though that where I'm thinking of this, and after listening to you, is just because the money's there doesn't mean we have to spend it.
Exactly.
And I think that's
I mean, right. That's
not that we might not get it. We need to say just because we have it, it doesn't mean we're going to spend it. That's the
That's a
message
very
I
good point, and
wanna
that's,
send. You know what
yes,
I
that would be a way to end around it.
Originally,
Yeah.
a lot of that money was to go towards paying for the additional, police or fire that's needed because of the mall. So it's a good offset, but doesn't mean you have to spend it all.
You would hope that you would
Well,
have
and we
additional.
do use it for that. So.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think these capital projects are in public safety, aren't they? Where we're funding?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
they are.
so that's all lined up where it's supposed to be, I think.
Right.
And when the town gets the River Bridge public safety mitigation, that could also be added to that balance.
Yep.
I see.
Okay,
when-
well, I'll say a little bit more on this after when I say my piece on the other thing I was going to talk about. But so do we have a motion and a second on this then?
I move that we vote to recommend the
Right.
capital budget, Article 7.
Second.
Yeah, that's it. We might have already had it, but okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Yeah.
Scott, aye.
With our thanks to the CPC committee.
Dream.
Okay. Articles 8 through 14 are the consent articles. Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. There is a revolving is one of them. I don't know if you do that either, but okay. We'll scroll down into 15. Oh, no, we won't. You're not
We don't
interested.
do revolving fund? Why do I think we do? No?
I know way when I used to do this earlier, we used to always do the revolving funds, but
Okay, there's
I don't know what you've
revolving
done
funds.
recently.
Oh, and there's also, there's chapter 90 in here. There are some
Yeah,
money
there's
articles.
chapter 90 also.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna go back up and take a look at. Let's see what we got. Okay, so that's a no. Okay, I guess we'll just go up to chapter 90 to start.
I was gonna say, Margaret, don't they normally do this as one lump?
They do.
They-
All right, so you just walk through and then just give your recommendation on all of them as a whole? Is that what you do?
I guess then, yeah.
Couldn't we just, does this get a little, do you put a little summary or the vote in for FinCom when, isn't there, don't you usually print something in there for the vote? Like,
It will say, yeah, it'll say, FinCom recommends,
so why can't we
in
just do
favor.
the ones, the two that maybe we do usually do it all, but I don't think we need a vote on all of the ones except for that's my personal opinion. But
No, I agree, and I don't think it makes any sense for there to be a FinCom vote
Right.
on
we just
motion
Okay.
number Article 9.
So if you're okay, we're gonna skip 8 and 9 to start, okay?
just-
All right. This article obviously has financial implications, but it doesn't involve, it doesn't, appropriate dollars or anything like that, so.
Yep.
Okay. And here are the revolving funds.
Yeah.
And
I'd say we need a motion on 11 then.
Waiting for a motion. I can give it to you.
I am.
Oh, motion on, I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Or
I gave it to
I was just listening to the
approve
comments.
Article 11.
I'm gonna
Okay,
do this for
everybody talked
Julie.
at once. So was it Scott who did the motion?
I'm gonna make the motion, Julie, so that your minutes are easy, right? So I move that we recommend, that FinCom recommend Article 11 to the town.
Second that.
All right, so these revolving funds specifically for these uses. This is year after year after year. This isn't anything new. This isn't anything different. This is,
Same
and
old
these
same.
dollar amounts don't change.
They haven't.
Do we
Do
need
they
any further
even have
discussion?
videos? Do they even have videos anymore? I'm just kidding.
We're working on that one, Janet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And obviously, the entities can only spend as much money as they have as a balance. It's not that they can spend the entire amount being authorized.
I'm sorry, what's the distinction there, Margaret?
So if they take in, so say for example, town hall took in $10,000, they couldn't spend 40. They can only spend up to what they have as a balance in the revolving fund.
Okay.
Okay, this just gives them an expenditure upper limit.
But this isn't the entire budget for the town hall. This is just just their revolving fund.
That's correct. Yeah, there are other expenses paid from facility, buildings and things.
Right.
Mhm.
And same with recreation. This doesn't like establish recreation's budget. This is just a portion of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Did I?
Yeah.
Got I.
Okay. All right. The next one is the next one's it. I find this one very interesting.
Yeah, I don't understand why we still have it, but yeah.
I don't either. This money is actually budgeted in the operating budget. All this does is it sets aside these amounts for the tree doctor work, Dutch elm disease and insect and pest control. So these amounts appear in the are in the highways expense line.
Well, can we get rid of it? I mean, I'm just saying this year, like, wouldn't this be the year to like get rid of it if we don't need it?
Well, maybe. It is a consent article, so they'd be moved all together. It wouldn't take a lot of time, but I mean, maybe.
Well, it wasn't a matter of not needing. It was a matter of why we're separating these two things out, right? That was your thing stating. It's just that
Yeah.
it's already in there.
Yes.
It is.
Sorry.
It is.
'Cause the other thing is-
I'm sure this goes back to a statute. I don't know the statutory reference, but I can check with Barry on this one to find out why.
Right, and it would also make sense because it's one of those things, like if we told the highway department they have to go back and cancel, that they have to reduce their budget by $2,300, they could say, oh, okay, we'll just eliminate these two things. And if there's a statutory requirement for it to get done, this doesn't allow them to just, they might actually have to, I don't know, cut salaries. Yeah, it probably does go back to something statutory.
Mhm. I don't know. Do you want to make a recommendation on this one, or?
I don't. I think we ought to leave it alone. Just it's.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing it does is,
I think maybe I think passively leaving it off might raise discussion about it, but it might not.
Oh, just vote just to be safe, Stan, so that it's non-controversial.
Well, but it might foster discussion if we don't. I mean, there's a chance that somebody would say, why does FinCom have an opinion on this? And
All right, I got you. Okay.
I don't know. So I guess what I'm saying is that it would be therefore, if anyone actually has any strong feelings on this, then maybe it would be a time for them to actually bring it up. But maybe not.
Well, okay, Stan, I'll move that we vote to recommend Article 12 to the town.
second it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet?
Scott, I.
Muted. I'm sorry, I did say Janet, I
Okay, Julie, I.
was muted, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, keeping going here. All right, here's the chapter 90 money.
It sort of feels like we should vote on this, even though there's not exact specific dollars.
Oh, I can, and before town meeting, we've gotten the chapter 90 certification. I don't have the number on me right now, but I can at least inform you of that in case the question comes up. How much have we gotten this year in chapter 90 funds? Roughly a couple of $100,000. I can't remember the exact amount.
Yeah, I feel like this falls under our purview.
I'm waiting for Mary.
I move that we vote to recommend Article 14 to the town.
13.
13.
13, my apology.
If only we had a second.
Actually, it is 13, right?
Yeah,
13, yeah. Did we lose Scott?
I think he
Can you hear me?
chimed in.
Yep,
Now
there
we
you
can.
He's
Yeah,
back.
Okay, you can second that.
here we go. Do we have any further discussion? Roll call vote. All those, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Yeah.
Scott, I.
Oh, boy.
14 is the execution of long-term contracts such as lease, long-term solar pilots and things of that nature. I don't know. I mean, obviously there are financial implications of long-term leases, but there are no specific numbers here. It just allows the select board.
Yeah, I'm not feeling like we need to vote. Does anyone have any feelings on this? To the contrary, I should say. I think we can skip that one.
Another good example of that one would be the Berlin Memorial School. We have to do a lease agreement under the regional school district agreement for that. And it's going to be 20 years. So, okay, the next one, I don't think you have anything on 15, right? So
No.
Next one would be cable access.
This is more of a housekeeping, if anything, but again, because there's specific dollars, I think we probably need to vote on it. But again, these numbers haven't changed in my lifetime, I don't think.
Well,
No.
I move that we vote that we recommend this Article 16 to the town.
Any second?
Any further discussion on this housekeeping issue, basically? Hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Yeah.
Scott, I.
Whoops. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Community Preservation Act FY 2022 budget. Now this one does have the set asides, the reserves into the 3 statutory buckets, and it also has appropriations. June, I can't fully explain the revenues to the budgeted reserve. The CPA committee, though, does have the ability under the statute to set aside, I believe it's a 5% amount for administrative support to the committee. And that's what they're looking at on this line right here for the $24,000. That would provide for administrative expenses.
So do you have a sense, Margaret, of where that goes to? Are they going to need some consultant time, or what are
They may need consultants, they may need to do legal ads, they may need to have some, a little bit of administrative support. So there might be a few different things they'll need.
Okay.
And again, this appropriation is just saying for a budgeted reserve. So this
The-
basically is just like a general, is that the equivalent of general fund for them to
That is pretty much
spend on the,
is the line item appropriations for them, is to give them the authority to spend that money during the year for that particular item. Anything that isn't used rolls back into the CPA fund.
And doesn't the town have to vote on the project where the money
Mhm.
is going? So even, even if somebody says, well, I want my 48 plus the extra, it's got to come to town meeting and
Oh,
it has to be a
yes.
vote. So
Yep, it has to go through the committee. They have to approve it to suggest it to go to the town meeting.
And they recommend it to town meeting.
Yep.
Every one of them, yeah.
yeah, I guess that's why it makes sense. It's called budgeted reserve. It felt a little odd saying reserve when it's the money that they're in theory supposed to be allocating, but that makes sense.
Well, the appropriations are ones that we are allowing them to spend.
I know it's just right, but that sort of flies in the face of reserve. I guess is my thought on that, June, is that whenever we're talking about reserves, it's not typically, it's like we're putting money aside, we're saving it as opposed to spending it when we're talking about reserves. I mean, I guess we often talk about appropriating money to reserves. I guess it's,
Well,
it's,
yeah, see, appropriations to me are you're approving to spend, just like the regular line item appropriations.
yeah,
Versus reserves, it's kind of like you're transferring the money from the general fund into stabilization.
yeah. Which again feels like a savings as opposed to we're not, because we always.
No, that's what the reserves though are. The reserves are just saving money for that particular purpose. We're not authorizing any spending. The only
I see where Stan's coming from. When you put it under appropriations and you're saying you're saving it.
Yeah, it just,
To a
this is
layperson.
Well, no, I don't see where you're spending under a reserve there, but
because you said this is what they're allowed to spend, is what's under appropriations.
and that's what they are. It's not a reserve. They're actually appropriating money for
That's true.
the committee administrative expenses.
Okay, so you said it's not a reserve, but we call it a reserve.
I didn't call it a reserve. I called it an appropriation.
That's budgeted reserve.
Oh, that line there is
No,
not my
no.
wording.
No, Stan, the expenses are on that first line. The second one is the budget reserve.
So it's
What are you saying?
money being appropriated from the revenues collected from the surcharge, and it's going into the budgeted reserve. So it's an appropriation to the budgeted reserve.
No, I'm with you, Stan, on budgeted reserve. That is not my call. That is all state wording. It is not mine.
it's the verbiage that
Oh,
knocks
But
it
that
off.
is an
Moron
expense.
is the verbiage of it
It's
all.
an expense. That is giving them the authority to spend that money, but it has to go to town meeting to be reappropriated for the project.
Right, which is no different, I mean, than the stabilization or the other reserves. I mean, there's money, it's a pool of money that then has to be decided what it's going to be used for. And that's exactly what this is. It's the first thing that struck me was appropriation reserve, and it probably even shouldn't have, but it did. So let's move along. It's getting late already.
I get it.
Just a
I will move.
I
Sorry.
have a quick question. So the sum total of those 5 lines is what, $484,667?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we recommend Article 17 to the town.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Dan and I.
Scott, aye.
I'd like to ask for a pause here for a second. So Margaret, we have to make our recommendation. We have to finish our work on all of these votes tonight. Does this have to go out for printing as of like tomorrow or something?
No.
Or does it?
No, you're scheduled for
Because we have
one
another-
more meeting to be able to
we have another
finalize
meeting.
everything. Mhm.
How many more articles are there?
35 or something.
There's
isn't it?
40.
22.
40.
40 more?
Well,
But
no,
there are a
no,
lot
sorry,
of
that's
money.
40 total.
There are 40
No,
total.
40 total. Oh, phew.
So Janet, I'm looking at this very useful cheat sheet that Margaret sent out.
Yeah.
I
don't know what that
have
one is.
that, but I can't look at that and I didn't
The
print it.
screen.
You
Yeah.
printed it.
Just an FYI, one of the amounts is wrong. I'm going to resend it with the correct amount. The
Okay.
amount on
Okay.
general stabilization is way, way off. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask that we break this in half. I'm not gonna be able to just plow through all of these tonight. And I don't like putting off till the next week because there's probably gonna be further discussion, but we got a little derailed with the conservation. I assume we're gonna get derailed with the
citizen
River
petitions.
Bridge.
Yeah.
With River Bridge, and then I think we still need to talk of some kind of broad general overview, and which I think I'll address in the letter. So we probably don't even need to take time on this, but I'll get that written. But it's not going to be much before that meeting. I've got I'm working straight through till next Tuesday night, so with very little time off. So I will have not a lot of time to work on that, but I want to and I need to. So I'll address my other concerns that I wanted to address in that letter, I think, and then we can decide. I'll look at that and decide if it's. I'm sure I'll word it too strongly, so we'll probably need to tone it down.
And is that the school district letter?
Yes,
Oh.
no, it's going to address some of that. It's some of it's towards that, some of it's towards other salaries, some of it's towards just funding in general, and I just I think, yeah, I just think there needs to be a little bit of pumping of the brakes a little bit here. So, and because I foresee darker times in the next couple of years with as much reliance we have on retail revenue. Revenue from retail. I'm greatly concerned about the mall and what we're going to see for revenues in the upcoming years. So I just want to address that, and that we need to be thinking about the fact that maybe the budget's not always going to just expand. But why don't we get through 20? Let's go through 20, or maybe if we can get a kind of an overview on how many more votes we're going to need on the other, so maybe we don't save as much, but or maybe so let's at least get through 20 and see where we're at.
You already made all of your recommendations on the budget last week, so do you have anything new on this one? Or, I mean, do you want to place your recommendation on this? I mean, you're going to have your budget, your town meeting budget sheets there too.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I think the separate motion sheets addresses this. I don't know that we have I don't think we need an overall vote on this. I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but I just don't feel like we need a vote on the overall thing when we're going to be voting, when we've actually created the whole thing, so to speak, not to take any credit for it, but I don't know.
So Stan, are you anticipating that we'll have split votes on any particular part of the budget?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying that we already have our vote of the entire budget, or we have. Well, okay, I guess I see what you're saying, or I think I see what you're saying. I just think that we present each one as a group or as a subsection anyway. I guess is what I'm saying. This is presenting the entire. This is authorizing or voting on the entire budget. When we're later on, we just break it down, or this at some point we're just breaking it all into its pieces. So do we need a vote on the overall thing?
You're suggesting we wait for the individual separate motion sheets?
Well, right. I just feel like this is, like I said, it seems counterintuitive, but I'm not sure we need to vote on the overall budget when we're going to be voting on the individual sections.
Yeah, because I see what you're saying, because this is a warrant article exercise. This is not the underlying vote, which we've already done.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So if you'd like, I can note under this one that Finance Committee recommendations will appear with the motions, if you'd prefer that.
That's fine. I mean, we're the ones that are, I mean, we're presenting the budgets. I mean, therefore
Yeah.
it
Don't
is
you
our
guys
recommendation.
usually
I mean,
read
it's
it?
that every person who's
Oh, it says
who's
it.
putting forth these articles is recommending them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I think as far as split votes go, I mean, I think it would have been addressed in the individual on our votes prior if we'd actually had any split. I feel like we voted all of them unanimously. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
we did.
I don't think there's going to be any split votes. I think it's just all going to be, we present all of them as their categories. So
Then I will, if it's okay with you, I'll just write down here, a finance committee will present, or
just add the words by finance. This article contains multiple motions that the
By
finance committee
finance.
will present to town meeting
okay,
on separate motion sheet. I think that addresses it.
I'm just looking at past ones and I do not see any such vote listed for an entire budget.
And I was actually going to ask you, Scott, as a former chairman, what your thoughts were on this.
I only can say it only produced controversy once, and that was around like 2009, during the worst of the recession, when we did vote. We always had voted up to that point individual line items, and we never voted the entire budget. And then the question came up at town meeting. So it just made it a little awkward. It's the only time it's ever come up, but it did come up, and like I said, we just talked that we just voted individual line items, not the entire budget.
An actual individual line item, not even like.
Well, when we say right, the subsets being the
Okay.
categories that we have. No, it's
Okay.
right. Of each department, basically
Yeah.
where you call the like the
Well, it
200,
wasn't like we
300
took the
numbers,
police
basically.
budget, right, and said this. No, let's vote on salary. Let's vote on expenses. Let's vote on.
Right.
Okay.
It did come up once. It just was an awkward answer, but nobody challenged us.
Yeah.
So it kind of left it at that, but no.
Well, I would feel very comfortable addressing this if somebody said, "What you don't have a recommendation on this?" I'd say, "Yeah, we're recommending all of it, and here it is." So.
okay, so I've noted that below the motion.
Okay.
I mean, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm sorry. Okay, here's the next one, Article 19. This is a request from the Economic Development Committee for funding toward the purchase of 3 Welcome to Berlin roadside signs. They're getting donations from local businesses for the additional funds.
And what's the total cost of these? Do we know?
The estimate that he had given me was about $2,000 for one sign, so the total cost would be about $6,000.
Was there a rationale behind the dividing up of 1/3 by town, or I mean,
He just thought.
I mean, how did they come up with 2,000 for this number?
I'd have to ask.
Okay.
I think he just.
It's not that
I
important.
think.
I was
Yeah, I
curious.
think he thinks that he's going to be able. They think they'll get the donations for the remainder.
Do we have a motion on this?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I move that we recommend Article 19 for the town, to the town.
Second.
Third, Janet.
Do we have any
I
further
lost track.
discussion on?
Aye.
Unless you want a fourth, I could fifth, I guess. Julie, do you want a fourth?
I will fourth it, yeah.
It was a joke, come on.
God's got a
Yeah.
fifth that.
Well, we kept going, Janet. All
Okay.
right, so what's
The next one is cemetery driveway paving. The select board has not yet voted to include this because
we
they're
haven't
looking for
voted to
additional.
approve.
We didn't move that on this one.
We didn't vote on 19
haven't
yet.
done that.
Second and third.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
We
Further
didn't hear,
discussion.
yeah, we didn't hear
Just
from
because
Scott.
we all second, third, fourth, and fifth, it doesn't mean we
Oh,
approved
I'm
it.
sorry.
All right, any further silliness to discuss on this? All right, roll call vote, Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Did I?
Yeah,
Got I.
All right,
Okay.
let's knock out 20 and see where we're at.
The select board has not voted to include this article yet. They're looking for additional information from the cemetery commission before they vote it. This did not go to the capital planning committee with capital requests. They sent a few other questions to the commission that they're waiting to hear back answers on. So I don't know if you want to act on this now or wait until the board addresses this on Monday night.
So Margaret, if they take it under 10,000, then they don't need to go to capital planning.
Well, I suppose it would probably be an easier sell if it was under $10,000. Capital is $10,000 or a lifespan of 5 years or more. So, you could still argue that it's a lifespan of 5 years or
Well,
more.
so you're saying select board's going to act on this on Monday?
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't we just wait then and we'll defer it to next week.
Okay. And then
So then that leaves us free to act on 21 then.
Okay. All right, 21. This is the tax title revolving fund. I think Dennis explained this one.
Yeah, what's June's thinking on this?
Pretty much all of the fees that are associated with tax title funding would go into this account. It would slowly, there aren't usually a lot of funds that would go into this. So this is pretty much his way of not having to ask for the line item, tax title line item that he normally does right now once this becomes established, but it may take a couple, 3 years for it to actually be able to fund anything.
Does this go in the face? Does this fly in the face of select board person Hawkins for his elimination of funds? Is he just creating another fund?
Yeah. Yeah, but the other two board members supported it and understand that the intent behind this is to transition away from the tax title budget line into using this.
Which I guess, and you could certainly argue, will also then free up. I know part of Scott's argument is always that it takes, not only is it having to track something else, but it's also having to take the time to separately address it. And if we're not having to do that because this becomes an internal thing for the accountant, the treasurer, then it sort of accomplishes, I guess it accomplishes half of that already. So, yeah, I would ask for a motion on this at this point.
I move that we recommend Article 21 to the town.
Second.
Does anyone else have any? Anyone have any thoughts on this? Hearing none, roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Did I?
yeah,
We lost Scott.
I was gonna say, Scott, did you vote?
you
Scott?
thinking?
Oh, he must. Scott, are you there?
He shows up on the participant list. I don't know.
Well, I see him.
Muted.
Lost the sound.
there he
If anybody can hear me.
Oh,
We
there
got
you
you.
go.
Hi, Scott.
I think you're good, Scott. Or not.
Yeah.
Scott, did you vote on that one?
Give me like a thumbs
I don't
up
think he
or a
can
thumbs
hear you.
down. There we go.
We don't have a chat here, which would be really helpful. We
Yeah.
have little incidences.
Yeah, we'd probably get accused of violating open meeting rules.
Yeah, I think the chat could be dangerous.
Well, I agree, but it would be handy right now. Like, can we go Scott? Oh, Scott.
Does that mean he can't hear you either?
I don't know. He's sitting there.
Oh,
His connection might be frozen or
we lost
something.
the
We
sound.
lost sound.
What's he saying?
We
lost
lost the sound.
Can you hear us, Scott? Can you give us a thumbs up or down? I don't
That
think
would
you
be a
can hear
no.
us.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh,
There he is.
there you are.
Oh, good.
Right.
Did you have a vote on that last one, Scott?
No, I didn't. Aye.
Woohoo!
Hey.
I'm not even gonna say that's anticlimactic because that was very climatic.
So is that where you want to leave off, Stan?
Well, I think so, unless you feel like unless there's a bunch of, unless the second half is way more voting than the first half, I'd like to break this in
One,
half
two.
at this point.
He's got what, 3?
There are two more articles that have dollars. And then after that, the only other ones that then you get into the bylaws. So,
Yeah, I think we should, I think there could be a fair amount of discussion on River Bridge, and I think I'd like to table that for the next time when till this platoon is further rested, to quote a line from Stripes.
There you go.
all right, so you'll pick up on 22 in the next meeting.
Yeah, I can keep my
Yes, please.
comments. I can keep my comments short on Riverbridge, Stan. I won't.
You don't, and I'm not saying you're going to be the only one with comments either, Mary.
I know. I know.
I have some opinions on that as well. So
Yeah.
but I'm very shy and reserved, so I probably won't say anything.
I know.
And if you do, then we know it's serious.
No,
Right.
I think my nose just grew for him.
There you go. All righty.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I love
There you
that,
go.
Janet. Thank you.
Thank you. 9:23.
All right, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.